You're listening to 990WBOB.com, Renegade Radio.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the second half of the Rotunda here on 990WBOB.com. Joining us right now on the line is the author of the novel Indispensable, Mr. Thomas Banks. Thomas, good evening.
Good evening, Scott. Nice to meet you. And the novel's name is Indefensible, not Indispensable.
Jeez, you know what happened? I took a sip of water there, and look at what happens. And I've got it right in front of me too.
It's okay. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Just don't call me late for dinner.
Never. Oh, same here, my friend. My wife will tell you that I'm never late for dinner. Thanks for taking the time to call into the show. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got the idea for the novel.
Okay, real simply, I'm a technology executive. I've been the CEO of 5 companies over the past 30 years, even a public CEO, and I've been involved in high-tech, mission-critical software in applications, primarily in the healthcare environment, and most recently in gaming. After I retired, I decided to get involved with mobile gaming because I got tired of the mission-critical aspect of healthcare. So when you're in gaming, who cares, right? If it doesn't work, if someone's just not having fun, no one dies.
Right.
Well, I was sitting at a Panera one evening on the patio with a buddy of mine, smoking cigars. It has to be the coolest Panera in the world because you can smoke cigars on the patio. and a drone flew over. He said, "What's that?" I said, "It's a drone." And he started talking about how cool that would be, and I thought for a moment, that's cool, but is it? And the entire story came to me about Indefensible, about what if these fell in the hands of motivated terrorists, arming them with any kind of explosive or poison you can envision, and deploying them from the shadows of their soccer mom minivans, miles and miles away from their targets, as they autonomously make their way to their targets, and making them fundamentally indefensible because they're small, they're agile, they're cheap, and they're effective. And that's where the story came from. And 60 days later, the story was written and published, and now I have a movie deal in the works. And this is nothing I expected at this station in my life. I figured I'd just hang out and retire and play with the kids.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, it's definitely a fascinating idea. And did I hear you write 60 days it took you to write the novel? That's amazing.
Yeah, well, I'm one of those guys that doesn't waste any time. It's just
good man.
Sat down, wrote it, edited it, and published it, and said, I'm done. Now I've got people clamoring for the sequel, which I'm writing. I just finished the screenplay, which was an interesting chore in and of itself. And so now we're hopefully toward the end of next year, we'll see a movie.
Good. Well, I definitely can't wait to check it out. And you answered one of my questions here. So there definitely is a sequel coming. That's cool.
There is a sequel, and anyone who's read Indefensible will really enjoy the sequel, because if Indefensible had a lot of twists and turns, Indefensible 2, if that's what I'm going to call it, has a lot more interesting plot twists and changes that take place. In Indefensible, the bad guys end up aligning themselves with none other than Kim Jong-un in my novel.
Oh my!
So I'm actually hoping that Trump doesn't come up with a treaty with them. I want to have to come up with a new bad guy. And so.
Oh my God! Yeah, no, we don't need that to happen. So let me ask you this: who's the target audience for your novel?
Well, some of the movie people think it's kids, but I think it is people who are aware of the threats that we face every day, and I think it's mostly older people. Everyone I hear from a ton of baby boomers, people who have served in the military, people who are conscious of this amazing threat that lingers out there, and law enforcement. So it's great for kids because the book has a strange plot twist. If you read the book, without giving away too much, we have a hero, which is Sheriff Johnson of Nebraska, Lincoln, Nebraska, and he's a former SEAL. He's a great guy. But the real hero in the book is technology, because we end up creating a technological solution to help mitigate the threat of the drones, and we do that through mobile gaming.
Oh,
So
cool.
kids are participating unbeknownst to them in the storyline that they are participating in helping to thwart this nemesis of these swarms of drones as they enter communities and wreaking havoc.
That is a really cool twist. And so what my daughter, if she's listening to this in Narragansett, Rhode Island, she'll say, "See, Dad, that's why I'm on my phone playing the games. You have to let me do it."
Well,
You know?
I hate to admit it, but yeah, as our technology becomes more augmented, as we all know with augmented reality, we know that in the not too distant future, whether it's 100 years or 50 years or 10 years, I don't know, but technology will be so integral in everything we do. I have a 12-year-old son, and I assure you that when he's my age, he will not be reading paper books because he is fully digital right now at 12.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's amazing the way that technology takes off. As I'm reading here now in the book, the drones are laden with ricin. Now, how deadly is that really?
I love that question because ricin, if you remember the TV show Breaking Bad,
Mm-hmm.
where the chemist Walter White ends up killing his arch nemesis with a few grains of ricin. Ricin, which can be made in your backyard with a little bit of solvent and some water and some castor beans.
Wow.
You can get the recipe off any internet site. Keep in mind, 1 milligram of ricin, a milligram is deadly to a human adult.
Wow.
There are 1,000 milligrams per gram. There's 450,000 milligrams in a pound. 1.7 milligrams is deadly to an adult. So a pound of ricin could kill 250,000 people.
Wow, that's really scary. And I was going to ask if it's difficult to obtain, but you kind of answered that question. I mean, you can make this with effectively household materials. So let me ask you this then, as a follow-up. I mean, how easily can drones like this be produced by like an average person like me? I'll admit I'm not extremely technologically savvy. I mean, I can use my iPhone and that sort of thing. But like, how easy would it be for Joe Average like me to put a drone together if I was so inclined?
Well, all it takes you to put a drone together is a credit card. Go on Amazon, buy any drone you want for under $1,000,
Mm-hmm.
and it is fully autonomous. Will travel at 30 miles an hour. Will climb to thousands of feet. GPS guided. You don't have to do anything but tell it where you want to go, and then you just sit and wait, and it'll happen. And there isn't really any technological demand on the user. Drones are not like model airplanes that require you to cut balsa and do stuff like that. These things are bought and they're ready to fly.
Okay. And
You can even buy kits for under $50 where you can take your Lego blocks that your kids aren't playing with any longer and build a quadcopter that's fully autonomous, computer controlled, and ready to go.
wow, that's scary, and not just a little bit scary. That's very scary. And I mean,
Sure.
like in terms of now, do they have to be remote controlled, or I mean, you can just basically program it where to go? Because I'm thinking, again, like if I was going to, not that I'm going to, but use a drone for these purposes of using ricin or some sort of other poison, I wouldn't have to be in the area to control this thing. I could just basically pre-program it.
Well, this is what makes it an indefensible paradigm. Consider the following. Let's say you pick a target. We'll call it Target X. And 10 horrible terrorists pull up in their minivans from 10 to 15 miles away,
Mm-hmm.
not even knowing the other one is there. Think about the magnitude of the square mileage there is in a circle with a radius of 15 miles, okay?
Okay.
Now, because our radio control requires line of sight, you have to be able to see it so the antenna can pick up your signal. If it goes over the horizon, you've lost control.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's autonomously driven, like by GPS, or it could be inertial navigation where it knows where it starts and it just keeps track of the time. Remember, we're blowing people up here. You don't have to be too accurate, right?
Mm-hmm.
If
True.
you've got
Very
20
true.
drones conversion on Target X, if one drone is off by a few hundred feet, that's kind of in the area of who cares when it comes to a terrorist.
Yeah.
And so the more autonomous we make these devices, which they are, the less receptive they are to responding to interventions like guns that transmit radio waves to disrupt their operation, etc. There is no real answer to thwarting these autonomous devices. If you were to put on a big old Stryker vehicle from the Army and put this gigantic, blasting weapon that gave out some major, radio wave, and it had, 1,000 batteries in it to make it work, it would only cover an area of maybe a quarter mile. So if you wanted to protect New York, you'd have to have 1,000 of these things. It would cost billions of dollars to deploy any reasonable defensive solution to be able to respond to swarms of these random devices. And because it is random, in one sequence of the movie, they're blowing up airliners on Final Approach. Another sequence of the movie, they're blowing up Central Park. The target is so asymmetric, it doesn't have to be a logic to it. So there's no way to anticipate it. And that's what makes it very frightening. And then when you layer on top of that the complication of enemy drones along with friendly drones flown by Amazon or you and me as hobbyists, now it becomes even more difficult to identify a friendly from a foe.
Wow. So they're really, in terms of like a military defense for this, there really wouldn't be one to speak of that I could fathom.
I don't believe there is one. I think that we all want to believe there is one. What we haven't had is a major push in terms of our enemy, whomever they may be, activating this. We're seeing drones used in all kinds of things, from moving drugs across borders to dropping weapons in the prison yards. People with a horrible motive know no limits when it comes to technology like this.
Yeah, and all these years we were worried about a dirty bomb or something like that, and come to find out it could be something as small as a drone, something like I'd buy my kid for her birthday.
Well, don't ever forget the fact that one of the most major terrorist events in America that we even talk about today is the Boston Marathon, and that was as crummy a weapon as you could make with a pressure cooker and fireworks. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't even a sophisticated IED. And so now if you take a half a pound of C4 explosive, 1,000 ball bearings, pack it in there, and throw some ricin in for measure, that would make a really bad day. If 10 of those came over, Angel Stadium or Dodger Stadium or Met Stadium or whatever, what would you do? 50,000 people sitting out there watching a ball game, and a dozen of these come in and explode.
Yeah, there's just nothing you can do. You just literally watch them all pass away on live TV, believe it or not, as awful as that is. Do you think a book like this might lead to people having an outcry to maybe have drones more monitored, to make it maybe less easy to buy them? How could you even do that?
As much as I hate to go there, I'm a pilot, and we pilots, one of the things we fear is encountering objects in the sky, whether it's a seagull, a balloon, or some model airplane or a drone. When you're cruising along, landing at an airport, and you're doing 120 miles an hour, and you hit a 5-pound object, the kinetic energy of that event is so intense, it will destroy you. And so I've known people that were killed because they had a bird go through their windshield. Jeez. And a bird weighs, what, a pound? Something and like now add explosives to it and make it more complicated. We have a situation that is not going to be managed by regulation. We regulate guns beyond imagination, but it seems like all the bad guys have the guns they want. Stephen Hawking said before he died that autonomous weapons, meaning things like drones, will become the Kalashnikovs of tomorrow because they're cheap, they're reliable, they're agile, and they're dangerous. And so Kalashnikov just this last month announced their drone that they're selling.
Oh, And it just
How is
about just in time, you know. So Thomas, I
just
want
in
to
time?
go I want to thank you so much for calling in. We're just about out of time, but before I let you go, I wanted to give you a minute or two just to get out your Twitter handle and your website where people can go and buy your book.
Outstanding. Thank you. You guys are all wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate it, Scott.
You got
I'm
it.
Drone on One. That's DRONEON and number one on Twitter. You can certainly buy the book at Amazon. It's available there. You can go to my author website at indefensible.org anytime you want, and visit indefensibleproductions.com. That's the movie website, and you can keep track of what's happening there.
All right, sounds good, my friend. Have a great night, and again, thanks for calling in. We'll have you on just in time for to talk about the sequel. Okay?
You got it, Scott. God bless you guys, and have a great day.
Thanks. Take care. All right, everybody.
Bye-bye.
That was Thomas Banks. We're going to take one more quick commercial break, and we'll be back for the home stretch of the Rotunda here on 990 WBOB.com.